It's real breakfast hours. Eat breakfast if you up. Today's breakfast is...
Well, folks, we whiffed it this week.
Made a little oopsie.
Neither of us took a picture of our breakfast this morning.
It was a weird morning. She was gone at like 9 a.m. and then I didn't eat breakfast either, really.
So, but I'll tell you what I had, and you can imagine it. Use your imagination skills.
Your mind's eye.
I had some bacon and some fresh fruit and like the tiniest piece of a quiche you've ever seen, which I didn't even finish because I'm a little... Eggs by themselves make my stomach a little upsetty, so I was hesitant to have too much of it, but yeah.
Very nice. I got up at like 9 and then ate some leftover hot wings at 11.
Hearty breakfast.
Very hearty breakfast. I had coffee at least.
So see, when you tell me that, oh, well, I just had a Red Bull for breakfast or something, I don't know. Like, listen, I understand it might not be traditional, but we still want to know.
It is still the first meal that you had that day.
So, which reminds me, actually, there was one day this week where I kind of got up late. So it was like kind of already almost lunchtime when I was eating breakfast. So I didn't feel like having a huge breakfast because I'm more of a lunch gal myself, to be honest.
Heresy.
I know. You might think, well, what's this girl doing hosting a breakfast-themed podcast? But here we are. So I had like leftover corn and I heated it
up. Like a bowl of corn?
Oh, yeah. And I remember I made a poll on my Instagram story. I was like, can a bowl of leftover corn be breakfast? And I think most people agreed that it could be breakfast, but there was some naysayers. Anyone
who says no clearly doesn't understand that the first meal that you have that day is breakfast. It doesn't matter what it is.
So yes, it's not like it's not, I feel like it's not even unhealthy. It's corn. But I get if you want it to be like a more filling breakfast. I get that. It's just it was like 10 a.m., so I didn't really need it to be that filling because I was going to eat at like 11 or 12 anyways.
Would you like a bite of my Swiss roll?
I'm worried about messing up the lipstick.
Getting lipstick on the Swiss roll?
No, not so much getting it on the Swiss roll. More like getting it all over my face.
Anyway, we have breakfast submissions from our friends.
Yes, we do.
First one up is a returning post from our boy Jugs. He had green chili stew with some fancy, like, green and metal spoon. I don't know. It's weird looking. It's, like, kind of pink. Almost there, down by the
he's got, like, the chrome
bowl.
spoon.
Yeah, it's, like, one of them green chrome ones.
I love chrome. It's so good. Is that it?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. It looks pretty good, although I do have to say I'm scared of chili. Could be spicy for me.
Yes, probably is.
Yeah. So maybe not for me, but
I would probably really like it.
Yeah, you would probably really like it. That is a really long
hey,
bullet point. Sorry.
It is. Get to your breakfast.
My classmate Alex sent a breakfast and a lovely description. Thank you. Sometimes it's a little hard to tell, or maybe we don't know how to word it, but this is 2 eggs over easy with herbs. Oh, this fancy herbs de Provence and everything bagel seasoning. So it's a little fancy.
What does herbs de Provence mean?
Well, I don't know. Let's give it a little.
Looks like salt and pepper to me, but that's just from the picture.
Well, you can see the herbs though. Oh, here we go. Mixture of dried herbs considered typical of the Provence region of southeastern France.
I feel like I could have guessed that.
Actually, I think maybe it's Provence.
You couldn't tell it was French?
No, I knew it was French, but I'm so sorry. Sometimes this whole thing, which, by the way, I've been doing some Duolingo. I was on that Finnish tract, which I guess I still am, but years ago, I was doing French and German on Duolingo, so the other day I was like, maybe I'm good with the Finnish for now, and I clicked on French again, and I didn't realize how far ahead I was in French. I mean, not super far ahead, but definitely further than I was in Finnish, and I did the most recent thing it had for me, and it's just a good thing that I have a background in Latin and also that my family's French, because I think for some of it I would have been a little bit like, oh, I don't know this word.
All right, we're back.
What was I saying?
You were talking about your French Duolingo. We were the herb de Provence. You didn't even tell me what kind of herbs they were.
I just said herbs from Provence. I don't know.
11 herbs and spices? Like, what's going on?
Oh, here we go. These blends often contain savory, marjoram, rosemary, thyme, and oregano, and sometimes lavender leaves.
Incredible.
Because, lavender fields are very popular.
In France.
In Provence.
My mistake.
Which, by the way, okay, if you ever get ads for that, like, Calm app, and I would always get this one specifically guy. They do sleep stories and stuff like that, and I'm a big read me a story for bed type of girl. Not really, but, well, yes, really.
Yes, really.
That's why I like the lore so much. I'll put it like those lore to sleep to videos. But so the Calm is kind of like that, but he don't like it. So I had bought like a year's subscription once before we were together. But then once we started being together again, because now I'm out of college, right? So then I was like, he didn't like me playing the sleep stories. So
it's irritating. I'm just trying to sleep, bro. I don't need to hear whatever the heck is going on there. Even before I met her, I didn't sleep with the fan on. I didn't watch TV to go to bed. I would watch a couple of YouTube videos maybe on my phone before deciding it was time for sleep. But I was very much a lights off, all stimulus turned off, time for bed. But then she's like, oh, well, I need at least the fan on. So then it was like, okay, I guess we can put the fan on. And now that we live together, the fan is always on. And then she wants the TV on. And then she sets a sleep timer. So it's just like 3 times more stimulus than I need to sleep. And having a background noise that I don't care about is one thing, because I can just tune it out. But her having somebody reading us a story while I'm trying to sleep is too much.
Yeah, I just bring that up because one of them is like literally talking about like a stroll through the lavender fields in South France. And Provence, I think, is literally where it is, or for some of it. And it's like this like British guy with this really nice like voice, and it was good. I don't know, like, you don't have to care about it. Like, you just tune it out.
It's harder to tune out somebody dictating directly to us, because that's what they are, and they're reading a story, versus somebody on a YouTube video who's just, reacting to playing Minecraft or something like that.
But usually it's like the lore videos that I put on for bedtime.
Yeah, I don't know. It's lore that I also usually already know, almost
so
always.
You don't mind.
Yeah, me hearing somebody talk about Skyrim lore for the 500th time can just pass right past me because I know it. Whereas if somebody's reading me a book that I've never heard before, I don't know, it's a lot harder for my brain to try not to care about because, I don't know this information. I would like to absorb it, but I don't want to absorb right now. I'm trying to go to sleep.
Yeah. Well. Now you deal with the TV being on at night.
Yes. Also, I don't know if we were recording when you said this, but you noticed that I have one very long bullet point on my Real Breakfast Hours 9
I did notice that.
bullets. Which, normally I just put a sentence or a phrase. Like one of my bullet points is AI art and voices. Literally 4 words. I could talk plenty about that. But another one of my bullet points is a whole paragraph. Because I specifically typed out what the story was or what I wanted to say so I wouldn't forget today. This bullet point is gym etiquette. Some girl was filming herself at the gym, which is your first red flag. I don't like this trend of, specifically, it seems, at least from TikTok, mostly women, recording themselves at the gym, and then like any guy who glances at them or walks past them or speaks to them, they're like, oh my god, he's so creepy.
Oh, I see. You're talking about that. I was like, guys film themselves in the gym all the time.
I don't mean like check out my workout.
Okay.
I mean I'm recording myself at the gym to catch somebody being creepy. Not necessarily that she was doing that, but it is a trend right now to do that. Mm-hmm. So, and again, this was a TikTok video, so I'm kind of not giving her any slack or cutting her a break at all because of the trend and the way the rest of the story goes. She was filming herself at the gym, using a machine for squats. After she sets her camera up, a man off screen asks her, he waves at her to take her headphones off because he wants to ask her a question. She moves her headphones, and you can immediately tell from her body language and the face she's giving this guy that she's irritated. He asks her, how many sets do you have left? Very normal question to ask somebody at the gym, right? Mm-hmm. You're using this machine. I'd like to use that when you're done. How many sets you got left so I can, know when to come back and try to use it when you're done?
Right.
She answers him, the number she gives him or whatever, her response is inaudible. I didn't pick it up. But the response doesn't really matter. But then she, does this with her face, gives him more attitude. And the caption on this video is, one of my biggest pet peeves at the gym. People asking you how many sets you have left is your biggest pet peeve at the gym. And then she posts this video to her TikTok. And then people on Twitter started having Twitter is the smooth brain capital of the world, right? They were roasting the guy for not respecting her in her space. He didn't do anything. He just asked her a question, a very common question, in what I perceived as a respectful manner. And not only did she give him attitude, she then roasted him on social media for doing basically nothing. Mm-hmm. And then people are taking her side and saying, one guy literally said, and I quote, "You need to wait your turn if you're going to talk to a beautiful woman." What? Wouldn't it have been worse if he had sat there with his hands like this, twiddling his thumbs or something, waiting for her to be done with the squat rack and then approaching her, lurking there, waiting for the rack, as opposed to just asking her real quick, "Hey, how soon until you're done with that? I'd like to use it." Mm. It just feels very normal to ask somebody how many sets you have left. And it's very strange that people were coming down on this guy for doing what, in my mind, I perceive as doing literally nothing.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like it is kind of annoying for someone to ask you that, but I don't think it warrants all the response it's gotten. I get not wanting to really be bothered while you're lifting or whatever, but if she was there for a while, then I could see why someone might eventually be like, hey, if you're just doing a few sets and you haven't even been there that long and someone's like, hey, when are you gonna be done? I'd be kind of annoyed.
Well, but it's not you're asking when are you gonna be done. It's how many sets do you have left, which, I've been asked that question numerous times at the gym. It's very normal, and I understand you have your headphones in, you don't want to be bothered and all that. But you're taking the time to set up your camera and stuff to record you doing your exercise. So it's I am virtually making a scene here at my squat rack, but there's presumably the other ones are occupied, or maybe there aren't other machines of that kind. This guy just asks you a simple question: how many sets you got left? And you post it, and then you post him on social media to try to make fun of him, and people say that he has bad manners because you're beautiful. It's weird. It's just weird. That's all.
Yeah. So that
was it. That's why I typed it all out, was because I wanted to include the quote of the guy telling him that you need to wait your turn to talk to beautiful women.
That's so weird.
Yeah.
I guess that gets into the whole thing where some guys, you have your spectrum of the way men are to women, and you have your incels where they're women are stinky and shouldn't have rights and everything. Yeah. Which is one of those things where those alpha males sometimes tread into incel water, because both of them will be women are just for sex and or reproduction, and then they don't deserve rights, that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
And then the guys who are total simps, right, that are white knighting for them.
Yeah, there's I don't want to make up a number or something like that, but there is a considerable population of specifically men who just have no idea how to talk to girls and women. And then there's a horseshoe almost, where these incel types or the I'm bad with women types can go one of two ways, where it's either, women are subhuman and beneath me, and I expect too much from them and say mean things to them, so it gets weird. And then you have which seems like the total opposite of the spectrum, but it circles back around to being awkward and gross, to dudes that believe every woman is a goddess or something, and that they're, I could never speak to her and stuff like that. both of those guys are creepy and weird, and women don't like you. If you just, in theory, right, you treat a woman like a human first and a woman second, maybe things would go a little better for you. But that's hard for some of those people to comprehend, I guess.
Yeah, I wonder just like what leads to guys being like that, because
poor relationships with their mother, maybe.
Maybe, and like, do they not have sisters, maybe, and then they don't know. But like, obviously, not every guy who doesn't have a sister acts like that. But I wonder if there's like those incel types that have sisters. I mean, I'm sure there is, but I just feel like the more normal interactions you could have with a woman, like the least likely you would be to act like that. Yeah,
it's like we talked about in the last episode that like for a woman, like your relationship with your dad informs the relationship you're looking for with men. So if you're a man who has no relationship with women, like in a non like romantic way, like if you have no sisters, you don't have a good relationship with your mom, you like didn't have female friends growing up or something like that, and next thing you know, you're 22 years old and you have literally never spoken to a woman in a way that wasn't weird, you're gonna come off weird to women.
Yeah.
What do you got?
Well, I was going to talk about that book, but I guess, I mean, it did happen, but it hasn't been sent to schools, and I guess, like, they pulled it back. Because, okay, so, like, this is like two parts to this. It's more things about Florida.
We're constantly roasting Florida.
You know that if we're talking about Florida, it's not going to be a good time. But they have their whole, like, fight against critical race theory or whatever. I'll get into that more later. But we know there was that whole thing with the books, and they were like, pull them out, and we're going to make a list of what books, like, schools can have. And some, like, textbook publishing company had that is, like, currently in Florida schools, had, like, different editions of it that they were editing to address these, like, new rules or laws in Florida. And so, like, originally it was a textbook that talks about, like, I guess this says responsible citizens in history. Wow, okay. I don't know. But it said, the original was, like, Rosa Parks was an African-American woman, and back then you had to sit in the back of the bus if you were African-American, or, like, if a white person wanted to sit there, you had to move. And it was, like, a white person told her to move because she was black, and she didn't. And then they threw her in jail, or whatever. And then the next edition was, like, they told her to move because of the color of her skin. Like, not necessarily that, like, oh, she's black and that's the reason, but, like, oh, well, she has dark skin, or her color of her skin is what was the problem. And then she didn't. And then there was, like, a third version where it says, Rosa Parks showed courage. One day she rode the bus. She was told to move to a different seat. She did not. She did what she believed was right. So then they, like, pull out the race and, like, colorism and all that stuff all together. Like, oh, no. It's not about race. Why would it be about race? No, she was just, like, sitting in a spot, and they told her to move, and she was like, nah, and then, yeah. So I thought that would be interesting to talk about, and to be fair, like, it is still a thing that kind of happened, but I guess based off the CNN article, it was edited for that, because I guess there's a quote from Studies Weekly, is apparently the publishing company. It says, individuals in our curriculum team severely overreacted in their interpretation of HB 7, which is that law, and made unapproved revisions. And again, the House Bill 7 restricts what can be taught to students about certain topics, including race. And I think that's also part of why they've been, like, pulling out books and stuff.
Oh, so it wasn't an actual textbook that was sent to anybody. It was somebody overreacted. Somebody in the editing department for the textbook overreacted to Florida's intention, and then made this textbook with these alterations. And then they said, no, that's not what we want. Don't print that.
It says that they were never finalized and they weren't delivered to schools for classroom use. So, like, we're not there yet. But like I said, there was, like, 3 changes, so I assume the color thing is still a change that was made that might be there. I don't think this talks about it, and I don't know where I saw that, but yeah, there was, like, there was an evolution of this textbook and, like, what it said. So I had wanted to talk about that, but I guess it's actually not. I mean, someone did it, but it didn't go out to schools, so...
Yeah, it was more of an individual thing than a actual curriculum change.
Yeah.
This reminds me of an episode of The Boondocks where Martin Luther King comes back to life and has dinner with the Freeman family, the protagonists. And it turns out that their grandfather was sitting right next to Rosa Parks in that episode in the past, and only Rosa Parks got, like, sent to jail and publicized, even though he was sitting right next to her and he didn't move either. It literally cuts to them on the bus, and the white guy asks Rosa Parks and Granddad to move. They both say no. And then the white guy's like, "What did you say, woman?" And he's like, "We won't move." And then the cops only arrest her. And then he's like, "What about me? Why aren't I getting arrested?" And the cop says, "Stay out of trouble," and leaves. And Martin Luther King tells him to drop it.
Yeah. Although that does remind me that there were, like, other people who were doing similar stuff that...
Oh, it was all over the country.
Well,
like,
not even just that. I think before Rosa Parks, there was, like, another black girl who did it. And I think you watched, there's a Drunk History on it. I love that show. Is, like, kind of fun. I love that show. I haven't seen any of the episodes in, like, a really long time, but I always thought Drunk History was really fun.
Yeah, I believe basically Rosa Parks wasn't the first or only black woman to be in this almost exact situation. However, I can't remember her name, but the previous woman that had done it, there was something else about her that, like, wasn't politically right, essentially, for the civil rights movement. So they didn't talk her up. Rosa Parks was a huge thing for the civil rights movement, but the other woman, something about her didn't, like, click with them, so they didn't make a big deal about it.
I think...
Are you looking up Drunk History right now?
Yeah, Claudette Colvin. But I think it's probably because she was younger and, like, Rosa Parks was, like, kind of old.
Maybe.
And, like, maybe it's, like, more shocking if you, like, force an older person to move.
I'm sure you could look up Claudette Colvin, like, why wasn't Claudette Colvin famous or something?
Okay. Well, do you have another talking point?
I do. I had mentioned the AI art and voices point when I was going over my bullets here. What is this? I see. So yeah, Claudette Colvin basically just didn't look the part. Her skin color wasn't right. She was too young. She was pregnant. She just didn't have the right look, I guess, for the protest. Like, she wasn't as marketable as Rosa Parks is basically what it boils down to, which is kind of messed up to say. But I guess the rationale is that when you have a movement, you need people that other people will rally behind, and if you have picked the wrong figureheads, then people won't come.
Yeah.
It's sad, but it's true. Yes, so the AI art. I'm not sure how many of you are aware, but in the last... I would say year, I could say 6 months, but really it feels like it's only been 2 or 3 months that it's really been picking up. But I guess some of the open AI stuff and like ChatGPT, they're all just AI. Most of them are prompts. I don't have any of them. I think they cost money. But an example being ChatGPT is, to my understanding, an AI, and you open up the website, you pay your fee or whatever to gain access to it, and you can just you can give it commands, and the AI will respond with a text prompt responding to your command. An example would be, you could tell it, write me an episode of SpongeBob from Mr. Krabs' perspective, and the AI will give you like 2,000 words or something of a SpongeBob episode where he talks from Mr. Krabs' perspective the whole time. He'd be like, "Arr, that Sponge Boy, he ain't making me enough money," or whatever. The AI does a very good job. It's pretty convincing. And that, I believe it's the same AI, maybe just an adjusted one, has been used to make artwork and has been used to do voiceovers. Some of the art you can give it other prompts to, and the more specific you are, the better the AI gets at it. If you type pineapple, it'll give you anything that vaguely looks like a pineapple. But if you type in hyper-realistic pineapple sitting on a wooden table, you're going to get a much clearer, much more specific and direct image. of what any fool could tell you. Now that looks like a pineapple sitting on a wooden table, as opposed to some other top-down view of a pineapple or a pineapple cut in half or something that just saying pineapple might give you. People have mostly been using these to make memes for the last year, especially the last couple of months. A really growing trend right now is people have been using the voiced AI to do renditions of former presidents playing video games together. I saw a video of Donald Trump, Joe Biden, Barack Obama, and George Bush playing Minecraft together, and they were griefing Hillary's house with a bunch of TNT. And then Hillary gets on the Discord call, and she's like, "Who blew up my house?" And like, everybody run. And they all just disconnect from the Discord call. It's hilarious, but the AI does a really, really good job, especially with Donald Trump's voice. I think the more sample size it has, because it draws from existing dialogue. Like, you would have to upload a certain number of voice clips from your subject for the AI to do a good job. Donald Trump, because he's been a TV personality for so long, he has so much data that you can put into the AI, so it does a really convincing Trump impression. Other people like Joe Rogan, the AI voice for Joe Rogan is spot on. It's incredible. Like, I've seen him have conversations with Teletubbies, video game characters, and his voice is always perfect. It's weird. People haven't used it for anything malicious yet, until the last couple of weeks, where, speaking of Donald Trump, there was discussion, and I think he might have been indicted. People were talking about he might get arrested soon. Mm-hmm. I saw something else you should know. The AI does not do good fingers until recently also. You might type in picture of George Washington or riding a giraffe, and you could always tell it was an AI image because, one, that's ridiculous, and two, George Washington would have like 9 fingers on one hand or something wacky like that. It was never perfect, especially with hands. Recently, the AI got an update. It can do hands now. It can do faces better. It's a lot more photorealistic, and this is a problem because last week, or maybe earlier this week on Monday or something, I saw a couple of images claiming Donald Trump had been arrested and resisted. And it was pictures of like 9 cops trying to grab Trump as he was falling to the ground and like grabbing for their guns and stuff. And I immediately knew that was AI. However, I looked closely at the picture. All of the hands were perfect. The picture was very convincing if you like don't understand that an AI is capable of that, and that's obviously fake. But there was another one of him like being handcuffed that was less ridiculous looking. I still assumed it was AI because they were together, but in another 3 to 6 months maybe, it's going to get so difficult to tell what's real and what isn't, because continuing with Donald Trump, I just said it does a great version of his voice, and it does good AI art of him. So who knows what's going to happen like next year. You might see a video of Trump saying something outlandish, but you can't tell if it's AI generated because it does such a good impression of him.
Yeah. And I think that's something that people have been raising concern about for a while now. I think early concern about the AI and like deepfake technology was because people were using it for
inappropriate content,
inappropriate videos of like celebrities, but also like there's already those kind of Facebook groups and websites where people do what's called revenge inappropriate content.
Yeah. Adult content, we'll say.
Where if you send like a nude selfie to someone and then you break up and then they post it on these websites to like get back at you, which is really messed up.
I think it's illegal, isn't it?
I think it is, but I also think it's one of those things that is hard to
prove that it was done maliciously or something.
Yeah. You'd have an easier time if you were like, if it was a picture of you when you were underage, because then that's, But for like 2 adults, it's a lot harder, I think, to have anything done about it. But more than just that, like people were just making fake videos of people or fake pictures of people and then posting that, and then I mean, that sort of stuff can have a big impact on someone's life in terms of, like, their family seeing, if their family or people they know see it, their boss, like, different jobs they apply to, like, it could have really negative consequences. So people have had concerns about this sort of technology for a really long time, and I don't know, it's going to be really hard going forward, and I don't know how things are going to work out. That, I mean, people could make a fake video of you committing a crime, or any number of things that would not be good that could potentially get you in trouble, either legally or at least, like, with your job. Could get, people already call people's work to get them fired for stuff online. Yeah. Now with this technology, it's going to be even easier, I think, for people to make, like, not even just the stuff that does happen, but they could also potentially, if they wanted to, make stuff up and then be like, oh, well, I have proof.
Yeah, I saw, right now it's being used to make videos of Joe Biden staying up past his bedtime while Ben Shapiro grounds him. But maybe in a year it'll be used for Joe Biden stealing something. I don't know. And it's going to be difficult to tell what's real and what's not. Especially, like, difficult might be a strong word. There might be ways that you can piece things together. Like, even now, some of these pictures are very good. But by being somebody who spends a lot of time on the internet and seeing these types of images, you can just, like, feel that it's not real. But your grandma might not have, the sample size that you have, and it might be more difficult for her to tell if it's real or not.
Yeah.
And then you're going to have these people, not necessarily just old people, but you're going to have people who don't understand that it's not real, and they're going to say and do things based on false information, and then it's going to be a whole thing.
Right. And, how was I going to say? I do know that they also have technology, which I think is technically also AI, that can detect if it's AI generated or not. They use it for ChatGPT stuff, or if people are trying to, like, submit an essay that they had ChatGPT right for the, like, integrity stuff, academic integrity, so people aren't cheating or whatever. So they do have those type of things, which I assume they could use for the pictures and everything too, which is good. But I saw a TikTok today that was kind of like, it's always going to be this cat and mouse of, like, okay, make an AI that can do this thing, make a AI that can detect that was AI that did that. The AI gets better at doing its thing and not being detected. The other AI that detects it gets better at detecting the AI. Yeah. So it's like a thing, and hopefully they stay pretty equal so that it's not a huge deal. But it might be something that you have to talk for, like, in the law, it will probably hopefully not be a big deal, because you'll be able to be like, oh yeah, this was AI generated. But for dealing with, like, your family, if they see something about you or something online that was fake, like, that might be a little bit harder to explain. You'd have to be like, no, I didn't do that. So that might be a thing that comes up. But.
Yeah, so hopefully it's not evil or used in criminal ways or whatever, but I'm sure it inevitably will. Yeah,
because I do think the president guys is so funny. It's really funny. So I definitely don't think it's like, it's one of those things where, like, nothing is good or bad, but the way you use it could make it that way. So using it for funny videos, like, that's pretty harmless. And obviously we know, like, that's not actually the president's, like, playing Minecraft together.
It's actually such a shame. I wish Donald Trump and Joe Biden were just a couple of gamers, but in fact it's not true.
This is not true.
Heartbreaking.
But yeah. So don't use AI maliciously.
We'll be watching. Make an AI that watches.
I did want to bring up also, you may notice that I'm dressed a little fancy.
A little better than I am, that's for sure.
We're filming this a little late. I had, okay, all right. My school has this thing that's like Center for Excellence and Collaborative Education or something like that. They're trying to get like interprofessional stuff of we're osteopathic medical students. They want us to work with like the dental students and the physical therapy students and the physician assistant students and like, you know, all the different groups, because healthcare is not like a one-to-one thing, you know, like you have a dentist that you see, and you have a doctor, and maybe you have a therapist that you go to, and maybe you break your leg, so now you have to go to a physical therapist, and maybe you have to get surgery, so now you're talking to some random surgeon, or you get referred to a special like doctor. So like there's always a lot, and you know, medical assistants and nurses, and there's many working parts to healthcare and for one person that is seeing it. So it's a lot of trying to see what the best way is to work collaboratively together, for more efficient and smart and safe like healthcare, because it is annoying when you have your doctor that there's this, you know, the electronic medical records now, so theoretically like the doctors that you're seeing, if they're sharing these records, they should know what's up with you, but then like they ask you the same question a million times, or they don't know that you're on this medication that's in your chart. That kind of stuff is annoying and like should be minimized if possible. So I think that's kind of the idea behind this sort of stuff. So it was like a leadership conference that I went to this morning, and actually it was really, I thought, I'm not gonna lie, I was like, I don't really want to go to this, because I was like, I don't know how it's gonna be, but it was actually pretty good. There was a keynote speaker that was kind of just talking about like public health stuff, but the little events they had us do, there was like breakout sessions that we had to go to, and we were put into groups. So I was with a pharmacist student and a PT student, physical therapy, which was really cool. And there's different sessions we went to. So one was, you know, those little mirrors that the dentists have so they can see in your mouth.
Yeah.
So it was like this box, and it had cutouts for you to put your arms in it and like to slide a piece of paper in, and then but like the back side of it was all like black and covered, so you couldn't see, and you had to like, there was a paper in there, and you had to grab a pen, and using just like the little dental mirror, like you had to like draw a thing that someone behind you had a piece of paper with an image on it, and they would tell you what to draw, so you couldn't see what you were supposed to draw. You were relying on communication thing, which is a pretty common team building exercise. Yeah. But there was like the added layer of, oh god, now I need to use this little dental mirror thing to try and draw, which is, oh my god, impossible. Like the other two girls did way better than me, and I was having such a hard time. I was like, I would do better if I just closed my eyes for this, I swear to god. But I was trying to like look at it. No, it was not great, but it was fun. We were laughing and stuff. So that was the first one, and then the second one was like this personality test, and I love a good personality test. It was like what color you are. There's like leadership styles and colors, and there's like blue, green, orange, and gold. An odd choice of colors, but oh well. I was like a mix of green and blue. And then the other one was with some of the other osteopathic medical students. They were running it. There was like 3 different activities there, but it was mostly like first impressions and then team building stuff. And then the last one that we did was in the sim lab, which if you don't know what that is a simulation lab. It's very common in healthcare education. Nursing students get it a lot. We get it a little bit. Different groups get it, and it just allows you to run through different scenarios without having it actually happen, because they have these like really expensive simulation patients, which are, they're like dolls kind of, but they have robotic things in them. Like for example, they'll have an ability to actually have like a beating heart, so you can listen with your stethoscope. And the cool thing about these is that for example, they can change like what the sound comes out is. So for us, where we're practicing on other students who are pretty healthy and young, there's a pretty low chance of hearing like a murmur or whooshing or anything like that. But on the simulation patients, they can have it play a murmur sound, so you get to hear what that would sound like, and like what wheezing would sound like if you were doing the stethoscope stuff. So it's pretty cool, but we were not doing that. We were just taking like a history, and the patient had a complaint of trouble sleeping, like couldn't fall asleep and then would wake up in the middle of the night and had a difficulty sleeping and was exhausted basically. And I have a good amount of practice with doing all the like history taking stuff because we do it all the time. It's a nightmare kind of, but obviously it's an important part of being a doctor, so we've done it a lot. But for the other students, like they maybe didn't have as much experience taking a history. But it was nice to not be the only person that had to ask the questions, because a lot of times in our test-taking scenarios, it's very nerve-wracking that, I'm the only person that's asking these questions. And for us, it's a rubric, so you have to ask all the questions, even though in a normal patient scenario, you probably wouldn't ask all the questions, right? But because they need to know that we can do them and we know what the questions are that we might need to ask, like you have to ask all of them. It's kind of annoying. But so this was nice because, one, I wasn't the only person asking questions, and two, it kind of felt like more like maybe we are pretending to be like an actual real doctor, where we're more asking the questions that are relevant and potentially important than just like every single question on the list. And it was nice because the patient talked about the patient. It was like instructor that was pretending to be a patient, but talked about like the meds that they were on, and then the pharmacist. So we had a pharmacist, and like we have pharm questions, and so I know a lot of these drugs. Like she's talking about metoprolol, which is like usually for blood pressure and stuff. And like I knew that vaguely, and like lisinopril and things, and like we learned about those. But I'm like, do I remember all the side effects? But I was like, hey, pharmacist student probably should know this even better than I do, because while I'm learning a million things at once, I feel like they're probably more focused on just the drugs, right? So that was really cool. It felt fun. I liked that. And then there was a panel, which was fine, but I think that little sim thing was my favorite part. And I got to meet some people that I otherwise wouldn't, so I actually do think it was pretty valuable.
Great. You were there all day. You were there from 9 a.m. to like 2:30.
Yeah, it was long.
It was quite a time. Also, it's snowing outside right now. Unrelated to what you were talking about, but I got a text from my grandma a couple minutes ago. Shout out, hi Grammy. She texts me and she's like, we'll have to get together soon sometime. The weather is coming around, almost time for picnics. Meanwhile, it's snowing outside where we live. So the weather might be coming around, but it's not here now.
Yeah. In Maine, you're really not out of the clear until at least April, but sometimes May.
Yeah, it could snow in April. It usually probably won't, especially in Portland. But
I feel, maybe not in southern Maine, but in a lot of the rest of Maine, I feel like there's always one last like little storm that hits in April.
Winter won't let you go quite yet.
You really think that you're done.
You think you're getting cheese?
You think you're getting sauce?
Are you getting winter again?
Yeah.
God.
Do you have something else?
Yeah, I think I've got one, maybe two more bullet points.
Go ahead.
Yes. Sports and the difficulty of watching sports. Sports section. Not about anything in particular, but it is so irritating how hard it is to just get the game on TV. Like, I've got Paramount Plus. We have Hulu with live TV. Well, my parents have it and I just mooch off of it. But Hulu with live TV, Netflix, Disney, all these hundreds of streaming services, Amazon, Twitch, all this crap. And I still can't watch a home Bruins game when I want to. Only a handful of them are on Hulu, excuse me. They're listed as being available on ESPN+. ESPN Plus is included with Hulu with Live TV. I can get ESPN Plus on my TV through Hulu anytime I want. But there's 100 hockey games on at any given time because there's so many teams in the league and they play 5 games a week. So there's never just one hockey game on, at least to my understanding. I've only been watching hockey like for a year. But the Bruins, the Boston, aka the New England team, are literally at home in TD Garden. Okay, my local station should have my local team playing at home. But of course they don't, because there's 5 other hockey games playing at the same time. And I'm like, so where do I watch this from? And they're like, oh, well, you need like a Voodoo subscription or a Sling subscription or something. I'm like, I don't want to pay for that. Why is it so... And football is the same way that, usually we get... if the Patriots are playing at home, Paramount Plus has them. But not all the time. Like, I think at every home game, Paramount Plus would have them because it's CBS, and CBS gets the home coverage of the Patriots. But what if they're away? Or what if I want to watch... What if I'm not a Patriots fan? What if I live in Maine and I want to watch the Steelers? It's stupid difficult. Like, what do I need to do to make this less of an inconvenience to try to watch sports? Like, why isn't there one streaming service that you pay however much for and you just get all the games for however many sports you like? Some service that isn't a satellite dish.
Yeah, I think it's dumb how many... I don't know what the laws or I guess ownership rights are for sports stuff, but it must be something stupid that is keeping there from being one. Like, there should just be a sports streaming service, like how we have, Disney Plus or whatever, but just have it be for sports and then literally just have all the options.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure the reason is because before you could stream things, everything had to be on regular television. Or, regular television. And at worst, you had to have a satellite dish to watch certain things. And that was... Everybody had to get their piece of the pie because sports was, and is, very contested broadcasting. If you own a sports franchise or, let's say you're Fox and your camera died. I was in the middle of a sentence. But yeah, I think it's just money. It's if you own the rights to... I'm the only station that can play the Patriots home games. That brings you a certain amount of money in, so you wouldn't want a streaming service to have those rights also, because that will take money from you. But it really is inconvenient for the consumer.
Yeah. And I mean, at some point, there's so many streaming things now, which is also dumb.
Should bundle them back together and recreate cable.
Literally, they've just This is why I'm like, when people are like, oh, capitalism breeds innovation, I'm like, we had something, and now you've remade cable.
Yeah, it was innovative when Netflix had stuff that wasn't on TV, or maybe was on TV, and you could just pull it up. It's like an on-demand, like if you had Comcast or something. On-demand was great, because it was the only way you could stream things. I really want to watch SpongeBob right now. Let me pull up on-demand. But now, everything's been divvied up and separated and put behind a separate paywall. You had cable. You just had cable because you had TV, right? Cable came with on-demand. It was included. But now everything is $15 a month or $9 a month or $20 a month or $70 a month if you want Hulu with live TV.
Yeah, which is also the other thing is cable was expensive when you have all the different channels you might want. If you get the basic package, it's not bad. But then when you wanted all the extra channels, which is how you would watch the different shows, you needed to pay a crap ton of money. And so, it was also nice to have the streaming stuff where it was cheaper, but now they're all...
Yeah, now they're not
Now
cheaper.
there's a million of them, and if you want, this one specific thing that you really like, okay, well, now you need to get this separate thing. And they're, all being more and more expensive, like Netflix, which... I don't know how Netflix isn't even out of business yet, because the way they treat their customers and,
terribly.
It's, insane how they are getting away with this, that... First of all, they're always raising the prices.
It's once a year it feels like they raise the price.
And then they tried the whole thing with you can't have multiple people on the account and you can only have it from one spot and all this other dumb stuff. It's oh my god.
Terrible.
Hate it.
Anyway, we can talk about that forever. Let's move on to something else.
Okay. The other thing, which I said I was going to talk more about Florida in a little bit after the other thing, because okay, so we had the textbook, which was a thing, but not really. But I thought it was
You're almost off the hook this time, Florida.
Right? Okay, we get it. But still, I'm sussing you out. I'm still watching. But the other thing that people have been talking about, because this is a new bill, related. We know Florida had the whole, basically hostile takeover of that new College of Florida or whatever, where they ousted the president and I think the board, and they were we're gonna put in new people. Well, this is kind of similar to that. It's Bill House Bill 999, which you might have heard about. And I'm not even going off of like an article. I'm literally looking at the actual bill from like the FloridaSenate.gov website.
All 24 pages, which is its own problem. They always make these things so long, and part of that is jargon, but another part of that is, I swear it's intentional to prevent not only people like us from being able to read it, but also the other people in the House. When you hand a senator a 70-page bill and you say, I need you to read and approve this by the end of the week, it's like the terms and conditions in your iOS device. I'm not reading all of that. So it's not shocking that stuff gets through without people really being aware of it.
Yeah, which is like another thing that I feel like should not even be allowed. So many of these bills nowadays is that they're throwing stuff in, and that's why like nothing ever gets through. Like very simple things that the government should be able to do, and I'm talking about federal level now, not just like the state governments, because you know how we always have this thing where they're like, oh, the government shut down, or like the government's at risk of shutting down if they don't come to an agreement on this thing. Half the time is because people want to throw in like extra stuff into the bill. It's like, no, just make a bill for one thing, and if you want the other stuff, make a separate bill. I'm so sick of them throwing stuff into bills.
Yeah, like party number one will create the everybody gets a dog bill, and then actually on page 33 of the everybody gets a dog bill, it actually says everybody also gets free healthcare. And then party number two is like, no. And then the headlines say, party number two strikes down the everyone gets a dog bill. Like, it had nothing to do with the dog. It had to do with the other stuff that was in there.
Yeah. So it's really frustrating. And, you know, it's like, maybe you would get more stuff done if you stop putting stuff in bills. Like, just have them be separate. Oh, my God. Oh. So that is a thing. But anyways, so from my understanding, and I didn't read the whole thing because, again, it's 24 pages. And I don't want to do that. But
we're going to read all 24 pages right now.
Yeah, right now. Welcome to the reading of House Bill 999.
Having ChatGPT make Donald Trump read me this bill.
Yeah, but from what I can understand, the bill is less of like a whole new bill and more that they have added amendments to a previous bill. So there's like things that they added, and then there's things that they're like, we're getting rid of. But so, like, the first thing that you see in this bill is that it says the legislature intends that the Board of Governors shall align the missions of each constituent university with the academic success of its students. That was already in there. That's, like, not a change. But the thing that's, like, they added is curriculum that promotes citizenship in a constitutional republic and the state's existing and emerging workforce needs. Which, like, is fine, but it, to me, it, like, tips off a red flag, because, like, whenever people start saying, like, oh, like, workforce and citizenship things, and I'm in already a place that is, like, getting pretty controlling and big government-y, it's like, what do you mean by that? What are you actually trying to say here? There's, like, a lot of that, like, nationalism stuff where it gets, like, really bad and, like, too much, and it just feels like that's, like, a thing to me, you know?
In theory, that shouldn't be an issue statement, like...
Well, right, like...
Like, on paper... School should prepare you to join the workforce. Right? But we'll see.
We'll see. So there's like a little bit about like, I don't know, the universities following their like mission and setting students up for success, whatever. And like they have to have a mission, and then the board gets to look at it periodically if they feel like they're still aligned with that mission. Anyways, it says, and provide direction to each constituent university to remove from its programs any major or minor that is based on or otherwise utilizes pedagogical methodology, or pedagogical.
Let's Google that word real quick.
It just means it's like related to like teaching, or like the science of teaching, or like the thought of teaching.
Pedagogy.
Pedagogy, maybe?
No, the pronunciation's right.
Pedagogy. Oh, okay. Well,
pedagogy.
Pedagogical.
Pedagogical, yep.
Methodology.
The method and practice of teaching, especially as an academic subject or theoretical concept.
It's like literally just a fancy way. Like, I hate.
It's intentional.
Yeah. Oh, and we'll get into some intentional things. So basically just like that is teaching, okay, right? Associated with critical theory, including, but not limited to, critical race theory, critical race studies, critical ethnic studies, radical feminist theory, radical gender theory, queer theory, critical social justice, or intersectionality, as defined in Board of Government. Oh, that's like another. It's linking to another law. So let's break that down. First of all, I'm so sick of people talking about critical race theory. I know 90% of the people who are throwing that word around do not know what it means. Because I barely know what it means.
No, let's Google that one too.
Like, it's such a scapegoat and, what is the word? What's like when they use it as
it's a buzzword.
Like a buzzword.
Okay. Critical race theory is a cross-disciplinary examination by social and civil rights scholars and activists of how laws, social and political movements, and media shape and are shaped by social concepts of race and ethnicity, which, if we want to break that down a little further or just make it a little easier to digest, critical race theory is a study of how race, ethnicity affect society and the way society perceives itself and other people.
Which is like a thing.
Yes, an example being, I guess the nicest way to put this would be that there is a higher concentration of African American individuals in city areas. That is not a coincidence. That is caused by years ago, during when racial tensions were worse, right, and racist. Like, you can't even say, oh, it wasn't racist. No, people were literally enslaved, and then after they got their freedom, they were treated as second-class citizens, even though legally they weren't. These African-American individuals were literally forced into these cityscapes, and they were not, I don't know if it was legally or socially, but they essentially were not allowed to live in other places. And
it was legal.
Yeah, it was in certain, like, it was legally, they were legally pushed into these cities. And if you live in a city, most of the time you do not own the location that you live in. You are a renter. If you are renting a location, you do, obviously, as I said, you do not own it. You are not accumulating land or anything like that. So that when you have children and die, it's not like you can give your house to your kid when you pass. They just have to keep renting this apartment, so there's no generational wealth or growth or anything like that. So it just keeps these people poor, and now you have a bunch of poor black people living in the city because their ancestors lived in the city because they physically could not live anywhere else.
Yeah, and there's like a legal component to that story, and there's also the social component that when black people would try and move into suburbs, then the white people there like would all move out, and then it would lower the like value of the houses. So that's another way you get these like areas that black Americans were living in that have like poorer value, like home value or whatever. Like you get these areas that are now areas of poverty, basically.
Yes, and poor people, not necessarily poor people of a certain skin color, but like just by virtue of being poor, you treat your home and the other stuff you own like worse than a rich person does because you just don't have the money to upkeep it and stuff like that. So then the area gets worse. So then even poorer people move in, and it feeds. Yeah.
So, and like, this is not negotiable. Like, these are just facts.
This isn't an opinion.
This is not an opinion.
This is real. And if you don't like the idea that at one point it was illegal for black people to not live in the city, I don't know what to tell you. And that wasn't in every state, and it wasn't all the time, and it was only for a period of time. Obviously, a black person can live wherever they can afford to live now. But
it's not a coincidence.
But it's not a coincidence.
A lot of them live in these cities, and a lot of them don't have the generational wealth that a lot of more like white people do, let's say, because they were able to buy houses in the 50s or whenever and just grow that generational wealth. So that is like a component of critical race theory. It's not some big scary thing where, oh, they're teaching you to hate yourself because you're white, or like they're teaching your kids to like become slaves to black people. Like, I don't know what these people think it means, but they have like this big, the big bad critical race theory about it. And I'm so sick of it because people don't even know what it is and they talk about it like it's the worst thing ever. Like, please educate yourself, God. Anyways, so that's all in this. And like the feminist stuff and the gender stuff and all that. Okay, but like, you would think, okay, so it's getting rid of majors and minors that may teach that. So on a base level, you're like, okay, so we're getting rid of like the women and gender studies, like major or minor or whatever. And like, oh, you can't major in African American studies and you can't major or minor in Native American studies, which I know is something that you almost moved.
I was like one class shy of a minor in Native American studies. Not because I necessarily like wanted to do something with it, but it was cool to learn about. That was all.
Yeah.
Simple as. But now if I lived in a place with this law, I could not have done that.
Yeah. And beyond those things that are definitely about this stuff and like in the name, you would say like, oh, well, that probably talks about this. The fields and majors of psychology and sociology, which are big like social science things, talk about these issues, particularly sociology, because what do you think sociology is? It's how people and groups interact with each other and how that has an impact on society at large. So yeah, like issues of income inequality and socioeconomic status and race, oh my gosh, and gender, oh my gosh, and sexism and all the different things, like that's what you talk about in these classes and that's what you learn about and that's what these studies are about that they do. And you know, yes, there's other parts to it, like we learned about, you know, like the bystander effect, which is not really a particularly any related to any race or anything like that. And we learned about backstage theory, which is also very interesting and more related to, like right now, the idea of how social media can lead to, I mean, it was not always related to social media, but I just think it fits in well with how social media affects people's mental health, because it is this concept of you have a backstage self and an onstage self, and you're on stage when you're interacting with people you don't know or aren't super close with, so you have to keep up appearances, and that can be very tiring and mentally taxing, versus your backstage self is your like true self and much more relaxing, and like you're not working, like you're kind of always on if you're on your onstage self. And that's kind of what it's like with social media. It's like that's another thing that sociology talks about that is not related to this, but large parts of it are, okay, like why are, you know, Black Americans like more at risk for certain things, or like commit more crimes and all that stuff, and like the drug things, and like, because these are all concepts of how do certain social groups and certain cultures and certain races and all that stuff, like how do they get affected by each other and how do they interact with each other and all that stuff. So
yeah, and the answer to some of those questions is because disproportionately a lot of them live in cities and are poor. If you live in a poor area and you can't afford certain things, more poor people steal than rich people, right? Like, who's going to steal a loaf of bread, a rich person or a poor person?
Yeah,
feels like a pretty simple question.
So this stuff is just really concerning to me, because, and I think all the stuff that they're doing with the like K through 12 schools is concerning as well, because I don't think we should really be banning books like that, or like pulling books out, or telling, oh my god, we can't have an AP African American Studies course because race stuff. I don't know. We don't want the white kids to feel bad that slavery was a thing. But also, like, it's even more, like, when it comes to literally universities where all of the people there are 18, or, like, okay, maybe you have, like, a super smart 16-year-old that goes early. They're still old enough to, like, be learning this stuff, okay? You can't do the same argument of, well, they're too young to learn about it. Like, no. And they're paying for it because you pay for university, so they're paying to learn these things. Who are you to tell them that they can't take a class in Native American studies, African American studies, queer theory, like feminist theory? I mean, you were talking about it too. Like, I feel like at these places of higher education, like, you should be able to learn about everything.
Yeah,
basically.
I basically am of the opinion that if you are, like, in a public school, everybody has to go to school, right? Unless you're homeschooled or something like that. But even that is going to school. It's just a different kind of school. Public schools are run by the state, so I understand when the state enforces certain rules and expectations and restrictions. If the state wants to make it so that every public school, you have to wear green on Tuesdays, they can do that because the state makes the rules and the state runs the schools. These are universities where you are choosing to go and then you choose which classes to take. You don't have that element of control over yourself and your education in a public school, as an 8th grader or something. But you do as a 19-year-old adult who is paying thousands of dollars to get an education in something that you have specifically chosen to be educated on. If you want to learn about cat food, you want to get a minor in cat food, you should be physically able to, because it is your decision as a paying adult. The state should not be able to tell you, no, you're not legally allowed to learn about cat food. That's dumb. Yeah,
and I just find it very hypocritical that I guess the Republican Party, not to be super political about it, but it's very hypocritical to claim to be all about free speech and stuff, and then these people, because I'm sure, if you look up Ron DeSantis, he's the governor of Florida, I'm sure he's screamed about free speech before, because that's a very common thing to do. But then to, do this and say, oh, you can't learn about this stuff, or you can't teach about this stuff, where's the free speech in that? I really don't. And it's not this is the other thing, is, yes, we have problems with misinformation right now, big problems. We also talked about that in the interprofessional thing, because it is healthcare and there's a lot of misinformation about healthcare. So I get that as a problem, but these are literal it's just information and it's facts and it's actually vetted and known things. Or even in the case of science, it's the current working theory, right?
Right. And science always evolves and changes, but just because we don't do lobotomies anymore doesn't mean that in 1930 that wasn't science or something. It was scientific to do a lobotomy at one point. We've changed our minds on that now for good reason, but at the time that was the intelligent thing to do, and maybe some of the stuff that would be included here is not, in 100 years it'll be seen as bad, but right now, what are you gonna do?
Yeah. And they're also getting rid of I guess they're not technically getting rid of tenure, but so normally how tenure works, or at least I guess in the Florida thing before, it was that every 5 years you get a post-tenure review. And tenure is there's good things and bad things to it, because obviously it's really annoying if you have a professor who's a really bad professor, but they get tenure. So it's a lot harder to have them fired if they do something, if they're either a really bad teacher or if they God forbid do something really bad for you because they have that tenure. But it is also good for professors because they have a lot more say in what they can teach and a lot more safety in that, versus in a situation like this, which they're adding a post-tenure review at any time for any cause, or not for any cause, but there's conditions, which are, it says, including but not limited to, so I guess there could also be other reasons that they would do a anytime post-tenure review. Poor performance, negligence, inefficiency or inability to perform assigned duties, insubordination, violation of any applicable law or rule. Isn't that convenient that you're making a law that they can't teach about this stuff? Conduct unbecoming a public employee, misconduct, drug abuse, or conviction of any crime.
The big one there, for me, is insubordination, because if, Ron DeSantis or whoever is in charge at the time after this law goes through, if it goes through, Bill, I guess, comes in and says, hey, stop doing that. But then you keep doing it, well, that's insubordination, and now you can be reviewed and fired.
Yeah. And it's the type of thing where it's I don't know, I feel it's very common to hear of the small, rebellions, right? In, your social situations where a teacher, is maybe teaching you stuff that, the government says, you're not supposed to know about or whatever, but, I don't know. I feel all the book burning and stuff in, the 40s, right? Or the 30s, there's always people who are doing small rebellions, and sometimes it's a professor that would still be teaching critical race theory or whatever, or about feminist theory,
or maybe a black woman refusing to move on the bus.
Or yeah, God forbid, you better not talk about that now. No one can know, at least not in Florida. And yes, I get they're public universities, so they do get funding from the state, but it's not like kids don't still pay tuition to go there. So, like,
Yeah.
it's not fully state funded.
And I suppose the counter argument to that would be that if you want to learn these things, just don't go to a state-funded university. I suppose you have to go to a private one, which has its own set of rules.
Yeah.
But even private universities, I'm fairly certain, I could be wrong on this, but I'm fairly confident that they still have a set of rules handed to them by the state and the government that they still need to abide by. You can't just, teach kids to cut their fingers off or something like that in school.
And they're also just, like, more expensive, like, significantly more expensive. Yeah. Like, there was one in Florida, actually, that I had applied to, and I literally got their, like, top scholarship, and I still would have had to pay, like, $30,000 a year or something like that. Like, that's not accessible for a lot of people. And yeah, some people say, oh, well, college shouldn't be accessible to everyone. But, I mean, if you want to learn, and especially at a state school, like, I feel like you should be able to. So, I don't know. It's just a lot. But the state schools are still expensive, too. But, yeah, I just think, this is all the stuff that comes out of Florida is very not good precedents. They're very dangerous, like, stuff to be doing. And very, again, Republican Party says they're the party of small government, right? This sounds about, like, the least small government. Like, this is a pretty clearly big government thing to me, to be intruding into education, and especially higher education and what they can teach. And even the, like, the workforce needs. Historically, colleges were for rich people who just, like, wanted to learn anything. I mean, they would learn, like, Latin and Greek right. at college, okay? So, like, I think, and while, yes, obviously, colleges are great for learning, for getting a major for a job, and obviously, like, nurses have to go to school, and then you get a nursing degree, so that's, like, a very clear, like, this is a job pathway through college. But I don't think that means you shouldn't be able to have truly just academic stuff at school. I mean, this is how you open up your mind to things, and how you become a more critical thinker, is just getting to be exposed to a lot of stuff. And, if I'm paying for it, why can't I take a theater class, or why can't I take a French class at school? I mean, it's all just learning.
Yeah, and I understand that you don't need to go to college to learn about something. It's true. It's there's so much information out there. You could buy a textbook yourself and teach it to yourself. You could read Wikipedia for 10 hours a day or something if you really wanted to. Wikipedia might not always be the best source, but it does include its own sources at the bottom. So if you don't trust them, you can go straight to their sources, which is also good, or you can find your own. So you don't need college, and you certainly don't need a college degree to be educated or to learn. However, getting it taught to you by a professor at a university is great. It's a great method of learning about something you care about, or want to care about, or simply feel like attending. I mentioned earlier you could take a class on cat food for all I care. If you have the money and the means, just do it because you feel like it, right? Yeah. Isn't this the land of the free? Can't I learn about cat food for no reason if I choose to?
Well, apparently not. The land of the free, but apparently you can't learn about certain stuff, so how free is that?
At least not in Florida.
Yeah, I know, right? So, I don't know. Someone's probably going to be like, stop talking crap about Florida, but, like, I'm tell them to stop making bad laws.
Sometimes I'll mess with her, like, a lot, and she'll be like, stop bullying me, and I'm like, stop doing stuff to get bullied for. Like, come on, do better, be better. But, so, Florida, be better.
Yeah, be better.
Anyway, that's probably a good stopping point. Yeah. I'm so hungry.
I'm so sorry. Yeah. We're about to have burgers, I guess.
Yes, it ain't, it is real breakfast hours, but not for me. It's real dinner hours.
It's actually real dinner hours again. It's been real dinner hours, I feel like, the past 3 episodes.
We've been busy, okay? It's hard. I mean, hard might be a strong word, but it's time sensitive, right? I mean, this video is not about us. Oops, sorry. I'm drinking coffee, but it's not about us eating breakfast. It's about you eating breakfast if you up.
If you up.
And sending us pictures of your breakfast. We only had 2 today. That's disappointing.
We're at the bare minimum.
Yeah, come on, guys. We need some help.
But, yeah, thanks for watching. Comment down below any thoughts you have.
Ideas of things to talk about.
If there's something you want to see us talk about, let us know. Or if you have questions, or you want some advice. Like, subscribe.
Comment.
Hit the bell. Also, we're at like 85 subscribers, which is good. I know a few episodes ago we said we were at 80, and then like we had like a big like in one day, like 5 people subscribe, but then it slowed down.
It's because we asked people to subscribe.
So I'm telling you, we're at 85. We are 15 away from 100. So I'm once again asking you to subscribe to Mickey Trevay on YouTube for Real Breakfast Hours.
And share with your friends. We want to, pop off.
Yeah, we really want to pop off here. So it's on the vision board, right?
Oh yeah.
And send us your breakfast.
Send us your breakfast. And thank you for watching.
Yeah. Bye.
Bye. What?
Really? In front of my salad? I could really go for a good salad.
Make one.
Like a Caesar salad.
No more talking. Hold your thoughts in until we're on camera again.
I'm on camera.
Me.